Welcome back.
All right, there we go. We announce
Fire the
ourselves
rainbow.
with a bang. Um, so, we've been going through all of our kind of session zero stuff, setting up the characters, the world. So now we're going to talk about avatars. And this is probably the most dense part of this process, so we're going to unpack these a little bit more. Um, in a lot of the other playsets for this game, we kind of do the more traditional magical girl thing of like, cool, you do your transformation, there's costume changes, all that kind of stuff. In this one, it's a bit more fraught and complicated than that. So you have your avatar, which is described as being a perfect expression of your identity and will. It lives inside you but has its own thoughts, emotions, and desires and is alien to you. When you transcend, your avatar manifests and takes possession of your body. We are asked, what dark secrets are they hiding? What do they yearn for? And why do you fear yours? And so then everyone's going to describe theirs, name it, and assign it a virtue and two desires. Um, and so avatars are like this idea of an ideal self, but in the kind of more threatening tone of like, this is the person that you might become or that you might hope to be, but that is tangled up in being really like loaded, really high pressure. It might seem like an impossible thing to aspire to, and also like in becoming that person, you stop being yourself, right? Like you cease to exist, and this other thing comes into being. So it's all about that kind of version of an identity struggle, and you can kind of lean into it as hard or as softly as you like. My friend Ash, when we playtested this game, her character thought they were still a boy, but they were in fact a lady, and so their avatar was this like impossibly perfect and powerful like image of femininity. That this person like could not accept that that was what they wanted, and there was lots of like discomfort around that. So that's like a really ripping your heart out version of this. But there are lots of, you can spin it all kinds of different ways. It doesn't have to be quite so brutal as that. But in that case, Ash was just like, fuck me up, let's go. And just wanted like the most intense version of that experience that she could think of. Um, so yeah, you have this other you or this other thing that you might not even really think of as being part of you or as being another you, that gives you all of this power, but also demands things of you because it has its own desires that it is pursuing. And so, in the course of play, that's where we're going to see a lot of, for those of you who are familiar with like Blades in the Dark and other Forge in the Dark games that have it, this is where a lot of our dark bargains will come from. Is like, oh yeah, you can totally have this thing you want, but your avatar also wants this thing, or your avatar is going to make it twisted in this way. So they'll offer a lot of kind of poison promises in that way. Um, and they're going to connect into all of this kind of dream imagery and everything else that we're seeing. They're going to be reflected in the world and be reflective of it. Uh, so it's a lot of stuff, but this is like, if I can provide some touchstones for it, in the movie Paprika, which we've already mentioned a couple of times, Dr. Can't remember what her name is, but the main character, her like avatar would be that dream self that she has, Paprika, who looks different and is more free and open and like does things that the doctor character would never permit herself to do, but because she's in the dream, she kind of embraces this other self that is more free and open and expressive than she is. And a lot of the other
So,
characters kind of point out that difference or have relationships with one side or the other of her, and it's it complicates her life.
right.
So that's a good
Is
example too.
this like when we enter a dream, we become this?
This is like you activating your cool magical powers. This is when
Okay.
this part of you comes out. So wandering around in the dream, you can still be yourself, right? Because Morgan's character is still going to be able to walk through the dreams with y'all. But those of you who are not the unlikely hero out the jump, you will have access to this where you can let your avatar take over and then you get all of these cool powers. And so in your character playbook, you're going to have some transcendent abilities, which are only going to be available to you when you're transcended, which is when your avatar is doing their thing. And also, your action dots are limited while you're not transcended. You only get 2 of them. You can get up to 4 when you're transcended. And again, that means, in this playset, that means that your avatar is also manifested and has taken possession of your body. The other metaphor I've used to explain this is sometimes it's walking a dog where you have the leash and you get to kind of decide where you go, and the dog might pull on the leash or sniff a thing and want to go somewhere else. But ultimately, usually the person gets to decide. And then sometimes it's riding a horse, where the horse is going to go wherever the horse wants to go, and you can give it suggestions, but mostly you just have to hang on. So there's kind of those 2 different versions of the experience, depending. Does anyone have any thoughts of what this might look like for their character? What a perfect expression of their identity and will might be like?
I have some ideas that answer the questions, but I have no idea what it looks like. So I would
Mm-hmm.
love help with that. So I feel like dark secrets that I'm imagining is that I, this person who's like an influencer who theoretically people want to be like, that I'm desperate and I am empty and I'm desperate to fill that emptiness, to
Great.
be something.
Fuck me up,
And
fam.
I think as far as what I yearn for, it's that like meme of wanting to be loved and also wanting to be known, but that like being known is very painful,
Mm-hmm.
and that's required. So it's this desperate like hunger for love and being known, because if I'm known, then I am not nothing. And I think I fear it because it would sacrifice me to get those things. Just
Yeah, this is like the famous you, right?
yeah,
Like the idealized celebrity form of you that exists for other people and not for you, in a way.
right.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, like I think that the celebrity is like a way that regular life me has tried to get these things, but has in a
Mm-hmm.
way only become emptier. And so I think that fear comes both from my reality, which is that I've made the choices to become this shell of a person, but also from like the deepest desires that like I would do anything to feel like something.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know
That's
what that looks like at all.
that's great as a like what it means. That's brilliant. That's super good.
Feel like you're manifesting all the really cool parts of being an emo kid without being an emo kid.
Are these often like person like,
I think
or
it
could
could
it?
be, or it could be like this weird monstrous thing that you turn into or whatever. I think this can run the gamut from like being like Paprika, which we were talking about, where it's like you're just a person still, but a different person, to something more like in the Persona video games where you have this like, it's a huge fucking metaphor basically that's like you're a giant
Right.
minotaur thing, and that's about because it's about like lust or whatever, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
can we can do whichever version of that appeals to y'all. If you want to be something a bit more subtle, we can go with it. If you want to be really bombastic with these kind of metaphors, we can do that too.
Does the avatar state express is that something we can express or unleash in only the dream world, or is it's
Yes, yeah, these
okay?
only happen in the dream. The mundane world is
It makes more
the
sense.
pits. Yeah.
Just making the pits.
But what we might see in the course of play, because the conspiracy is trying to destroy the barrier or shatter the barrier between the waking and dreaming worlds, we might see some of that stuff bleed in between those 2 spaces.
Cool, cool, cool.
But that would be
Uh,
like a big notable event if that were to happen.
no big deal.
Dreamworld's leaking in again. God, call the plumber. Oh, jeez.
Oh, we fixed it last time.
Yeah, I'm not going this time. You have to go.
Okay. What dark secrets am I hiding? Aside from trying to escape this hellhole of time looping and saving the person I love. Mm, hmm.
I mean, building it out of. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You're good. I definitely yearn for a time where I don't have to travel time. I want to be satisfied with where and when I am.
Mm. Don't we all?
Yeah. A dark secret. I'm gonna have to think on that a little bit. I don't know what you're noodling around, Morgan.
Well, like I think I don't really have that many powers in the dream world, right? That's how it goes. Like
Yeah,
it's just
you.
kind of there.
It's a little funny because we're going to talk about this, but it's something that your character doesn't get to do right away.
Yeah.
So you could just be like, I don't know, I don't have one yet.
We'll figure it out as we go along.
You can
Yeah.
you can choose to opt out. That's definitely your option if it's more interesting to you to have like the other players kind of define it a bit and then you jump in. But you're more than certainly welcome. You know, you're part of this conversation as well, obviously.
No. Because I've been chewing on the things. I'm like, okay, she's upbeat. She's an unlikely hero. I don't know. I'm giving her she her pronouns automatically. That's just what my brain's doing for whatever reason. But and they're Oracle of the Dream. Maybe they like know what's happening for everyone else, but they have like this deep uncertainty about themselves.
Yeah, you're your own blind spot in terms of your predictions.
So maybe there's a idea of insecurity and uncertainty, and like that's probably what's just brewing deep, but not behind the veil, but like, yeah. Other than that, she's great. Yeah.
Other than that, and yeah, like building an avatar out of like your character's flaws or insecurities, doubts, fears, etc. I think is a great way to go. Or taking the things that you want and kind of locking them away inside of it, which is kind of what Jory's version is, right? Of like, here's everything you want but can't have, and then there's this like part of you that does have that thing, but that is kind of that you're separate from or can't quite achieve. It are both really powerful ways to do it, depending on like what you want to lean into. The other thing is I mentioned assigning it virtues and desires, but we haven't actually looked at what those are because there's a list. So I can also pull that list out and talk about those because that can help kind of build it out as well. So I didn't make a handout for it in Roll20. I apologize, but I can read them out.
Is it in the rule?
It is in the PDF for the sheets. Yeah, it's on the sheet that is meant to be like if we were playing this in person, you would have this piece of paper for the three of you. So it is page.
Oh,
gosh, I think page 17 or 19. Yeah, 17. And down at the bottom of the middle column. So avatar virtues are elegant, clever, brave, serene, bright, curious, playful, and beautiful. And then avatar desires are supremacy, apotheosis, adoration, intimacy, overthrow, control, scandal, agency, escape, prestige, indulgence, and truth. So the things that they ultimately want are like weird is kind of the intent here, that they're kind of like not things that a human person would want in a lot of cases. Like apotheosis, which is to say like ascension to godhood. It's not like a normal thing for a normal person to want. And so yeah, it's part of you, but it's this part of you that is like super exaggerated or wants these really fucked up things. And so that can be a fun way to build it out as well, to say like, oh yeah, mine wants apotheosis. Okay, well, what would that look like? How would some part of me want to become godlike? So that's another option for kind of spinning them out. And so every avatar gets 1 virtue and 2 desires. And I will do my best to quickly add this to the Roll20 thing so everyone can see it. Just give me a moment.
You said it was on the character sheets or the actual rules?
It's
in the character sheet PDF.
Uh-huh.
It's page 17.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's on the it's part of the series, so it's on the sheet from the series that is for the protagonists.
I see. Thank you.
Which I don't have a good like shorthand name for. It's something I should think up.
So we each individually pick virtues and desires for our avatars.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But
Oh,
would I even pick them yet, even though I don't know exactly what my avatar is?
I think that's up to you. Like if you want to have a big reveal for it later and that's something that's exciting to you, then great. But it can also be, you can still play into this idea even if your character doesn't have access to it, right? I think there's power in that like player level knowledge of the story that you're trying to tell with your character.
I kind of like developing this character as we grow in this game. So whenever we figure it out, they figure it out. You know, like.
Oh yeah, totally.
I kind of like that. Like I'm looking, I'm just like I don't know yet. Like these are all really good.
All right, so I've also added it in Roll20 on this page that we're looking at. It's just over to the right of the avatar stuff.
Perfect.
I'm kind of torn virtues-wise whether I want to go with brave or beautiful. Do you folks have any thoughts?
I feel thoughts on our own or thoughts on yours?
Thoughts on mine.
Okay, just making sure. I feel like embodying brave as your virtue is its own brand of beauty. I feel like a lot of what your character is doing is incredibly brave.
Yeah, to me that reads
like
as
that.
like a split between the brave version is the one that's like setting new trends or trying different things, like to engage in creative work publicly is very brave, whereas if you want to lean into being a someone that is beautiful and admired for their beauty, right, like that's a different vibe for sure.
Right.
But both
Yeah, I
can
like
play
brave.
a celebrity. Yeah.
I'll stick with it. Because I think, right, like I also have in some way turned against some sort of thing for some theoretically moral reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think my avatar virtue, somewhere between clever and curious. Having the ability to time hop would require a very curious soul, in my opinion. There's also the concept of like gaining a lot of knowledge is not the same thing as using the knowledge cleverly.
Yeah, totally.
I like clever and how that plays into the cynicism.
Yeah, too smart for one's own good.
Mm-hmm.
It's often how it feels when you're being cynical. You're like, oh, I fucking know everything, right? And like, everyone is wrong, and for these reasons. And if only I were as smart as I felt I was when I was being deeply cynical, right? That's kind of how I feel about it. I don't know if that's an experience everyone else has, but
Yeah.
it's
I
what I
feel
use
that.
to deflate myself when I get in that mindset sometimes.
So I'm starting to. Well, I said I was gonna wait, but now I'm starting to reading and thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but what if? Maybe I don't know. So I'm thinking like the virtue's bright. I don't know.
You're literally just playing the sweetest, brightest bean.
So cute.
And then they're gonna have like these really twisted, messed up desires to go with it. And you're like, never mind. Not a bean.
Maybe apotheosis and intimacy, like, no, I'm kidding.
I think that'd be very interesting for like your character that's so kind of like sweet and unassuming to be like, I want to be a god.
I know all of this. Why just bring me there already? Let me. And I think apotheosis can lead into also maybe them actually gaining their powers too, because like they're still like,
Right.
Yeah, it plays in perfectly, right, to the archetype that there's some part of you that wants that thing, but that it's not a comfortable fit. You're not just like, cool, gonna become God, no problem.
About it, but now it's going on there, so excuse me. Just write that in.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Like if you feel strongly to something now, and then you get to have the big reveal later, it's going to be that much more like visualized and powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's left, Andrew? What have we not chosen for our avatar?
I guess
Don't think those are
desires, right?
Okay.
Two desires for these avatars. Also, I don't know if we have explicitly said for everyone why you fear yours, but that's an important part. Is we got to underline the scariness of the thing.
Heck. Okay.
Which, I mean, I think we've kind of like, I could definitely infer from a lot of what folks have established already, but you know, I don't want to necessarily guess at these very, very important details of your character's identities and struggles with them. So
Okay, what dark secrets I was hiding, I think is a question I have a vague idea of, and it's definitely related to what I've done on past alternate timelines. And why I fear my avatar would play along with that dark secret.
Great. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like super locked in specific. Like you say, like this idea of like, yeah, you're hiding this truth of what you have done in other timelines. That's great. That's plenty to work with. And yeah, I love that the idea that like there's part of you that would do those things again that maybe you regret or don't want to share.
Yeah,
with
it's
people.
pretty similar to Jory in the sense that like, how far am I willing to go to do what I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
Did we have desire thoughts?
Always.
Oh, for you? For you or for ourselves?
Either.
Okay. I already wrote mine down. I said intimacy and
Apotheosis?
That word, yes. I can read today. I can say words.
It's a very obscure word that no one has any business ever having heard in conversation, so don't sweat it.
Yeah, that one.
It feels perfectly anime.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a high key melodrama option.
You're the chosen one, but I don't want to be. But maybe I do, but I don't want it.
Just for you, I feel like both control and escape are really interesting in terms of like the time travel thing. Yeah, you were there. You were already there.
Yeah,
that was
like those.
Beautiful. Yeah,
That rings very true.
where I was.
They're almost the same coin, different sides, right? Like it's like, oh, I want the control. I want to like know what's happening, but also I just want to escape from it all and not be a part of it anymore. Like.
Yeah, like you described earlier, this aspiration to finally not need to do the thing.
There's definitely an innuendo in there. I'm just saying.
I think adoration and intimacy are pretty clear for my character as I've established them.
Great. So, godhood and Morgan, what was the second one? It was apotheosis and intimacy, right? And then we've got intimacy and adoration and control and escape. Yeah, that's great.
Escape.
And then we went with brave, clever, and bright.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. the nice thing about recording these sessions is that I don't need to take notes on the first run through. It feels very freeing for me. Okay, so that's avatars all squared away. We can get into the like very particular details of like what they look like in that moment when we, you know, first transcend into them and all this kind of stuff. We can save that for later. That's fine. That said, if anyone has a big idea of like mine looks this way, totally cool also to hear it now.
I keep just thinking that mine looks like no face, but I don't want it to just look like no face.
So when you were talking, and I was like, oh, you know, because we talked earlier about how you're just, people don't even see you, they see what you're representing, and that's it. I was thinking like you're a mirror, or like liquid mercury that they see the reflection in. Like, I don't know, like just,
Yeah.
I was just going off that aspect of reflectiveness.
Have you seen that JJ Doom music video where he's got a mask on that's just a mirror? It's just a round mirror.
Janelle Monáe has it in Tightrope.
Yeah.
For some of the like security people.
Because that is a fun image.
Yeah, because
I definitely like the mirror mask.
Mirror mask. Oh, that could be your mask. It's a mirror.
Right, because also you have a mask.
Yeah.
Boom. I love it.
Cool. And is everyone into the idea of them being, of like having that option to be kind of like a fairly ostentatious metaphor, right? When you transcend, like you can look like a totally different thing. Does that jive for everyone? Great.
I'm always ready. The weirder, the better. So I need a noodle around.
Cool.
What
We need the
symbolism?
abstract.
Yeah.
Great. So now we can move on to our transgressions. How do we, and in this case we're talking about the three of you, the protagonists, how do we defy the dream's form and order? And so if we circle back, our dreams are shaped by surveillance and conformity. And so this is about the ways in which you, the protagonists, kind of exist in defiance of those ideas.
Is this collective or individual?
Collective. So like maybe all of you like are difficult to track or follow. It sounds like everyone is very like personally identified. Like each of you, the dream version of each of you is very, very different from the kind of typical person that we see. So there's definitely a shirking of conformity that I could pull out of that. But does anyone have any tidy ways to summarize those ideas?
I do like the idea of organic growth, where just like anything in nature kind of doesn't really resemble one thing or another. Like you have two oak trees, but they don't look exactly alike. They're going to be different branches or like different shapes. Like I kind of like just like, because you think of conformity, you think of things are blocked and cubed and man-made, but you think of something that's like wild and organic. It's just vines growing everywhere in different patterns. And
yeah, even in things that have patterns, they're not like perfectly consistent. There's always a little bit of idiosyncrasy. And
same thing with like snowflakes too. Like
yeah,
It makes me think about
No, go ahead. Go.
It just makes me think about like the various things that you can do to like basically foil facial recognition software, like makeup or outfits or whatever that are kind of wacky.
Yeah, we totally have to wear masks in this day and age, like breathing masks. We have weird designs. So, okay, hear me out in terms of the cyberpunky parts of this dream world, right? So, how do we feel about near far future? The idea of the technology is there that we are microchipped to some degree, and if we're okay with that, we defy that because I know how to spoof rice grains to be our own microchips.
Right. So there are ways in which you are not victim
so
to
we're
the
on the
surveillance
grid
state.
when we want to be and when we have to be, but we have ways to not be.
Here's the question: does surveillance extend to people's dreams?
Ooh. I thought you went to the dreams to escape all this stuff. Oh, jeez. Okay.
Like,
I don't think it's the same surveillance. I think that if there is surveillance, it is somehow in dream world
Mystified.
only.
yeah, okay, cool.
There's dream cops.
I mean, it
There's
makes sense in some ways, right? That, like, if that's so prevalent in our day-to-day lives that we start manifesting that in different ways in our dream lives. Cool.
I
Yeah,
wonder if the. Go ahead.
I want to say, like, in the actual dreamscape, there's no way that our typical surveillance can capture video. So, like, it's scrambled in that aspect.
Yeah, I'm not imagining, like, you know, dream cops, like, looking into people's minds and seeing what's happening, but, like, any kind of way that people are being monitored in terms of, like, oh, your heart rate was really elevated last night, like, what was that about? Like, maybe through some of these kind of secondary means, people get a sense of, like, your time at night is not entirely your own, but we don't have to lean too hard into that. I like the idea that y'all are able to opt out of the, like, material surveillance state when you need to. I think that's very powerful.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm wondering if like there's a certain kind of surveillance that's happening in these dreams by the artists.
Oh, the conspiracy
kind
definitely is keeping an eye on things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they
and
the
they're
dream
like,
cops?
well, they're dream cops, but like they're being like, we need to enforce that you have a creative, interesting time here in this dream.
Yeah, it's
and like
policing in the, like,
Are
sociological
they the camp
sense.
counselors of our dreams?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's basket weaving again.
I swear I made a friendship bracelet already.
So yeah, so we can
Yep.
elude the surveillance.
Yeah, I think that's lots to run with. And so the next question is, what truths can we share only with each other? And this one is meant to contrast the idea of, like, what things we normally would hide from other people. So our emotions, our authenticity, these kinds of things.
So by virtue of my play set, because they don't know who I am, right?
Yes, so that is still a secret. Presumably your, like, double life, but you as friends, the three of you, because the characters are all acquainted in the mundane world as well. What are y'all doing that is in defiance of this convention of hiding your feelings and your authentic self from people?
Do we get together and have movie nights where we just watch sad movies and cry?
I kind of don't want us to watch movies because movies feel like part of this media state, but I like the idea of us having, like, emotional experiences with one another.
We go super meta and we get together and play A&A adventure and
Action and adventures. Adventures and allegories, I like that. It could be that, like, your movie night is for watching contraband movies that have been like, that predate this kind of surveillance state horror show that we live in, or if we want to stick with that idea, because I think there are ways to make that not feel like part of the media saturation. It's also kind of, to me, a little bit poignant, right? That there just aren't a lot of options, and that, like, the thing that you can do together involves still some of the problematic stuff of the society that you live in, but you find a way to reclaim it or make it your own. I think could be powerful.
Yeah, I like it.
We could also do something, like, not, like, media related, like play tabletop games, play board games, do art together, like, maybe,
as friends, because I imagine, like, true friendship isn't something super that runs super deep in this society. So I'm trying to, like, play on the authenticity, like, what kind of activity could we regularly hide from others but meet up to be more authentic to ourselves? Or we all die smart goblins.
Maybe we watch band movies and we write poetry about the movies, and we're probably not very good at it, but it does have feeling.
Yeah, I like the idea of like I was gonna say like you all like journal together or something. Like there's some
Right.
kind of shared activity of expression that you do that's very emotional.
Hell yeah. We have a physical journal, guys.
Is it like the traveling pants sort of thing? It's a
Uh,
traveling journal between us.
It's like a slam book.
Yeah.
no, man. My middle school feelings.
Oh no. But yeah, I think the idea of having like a physical artifact, right? Like there's this book that you can write in that no one can scrape for metadata or like fuck around with. It's not integrated into all of these systems.
Paper is contraband.
Right?
The
Like,
fact that we even have this journal is this act of defiance.
We have this one pen that we cannot lose.
yeah, like
Yeah, I
these
think
could
the
be
ink will
very
glow.
precious things and very precious ideas. Like something that is outside of the net of surveillance is really, really powerful. Even though it might feel a little silly to us, that
Yeah, I like it.
okay, cool. And we can kind of hash out the specific details of that in play, no problem. Um, Importantly, what would happen if anyone found us out?
Oh,
We
no,
definitely
no,
all lose our
no.
jobs.
It'd be bad news bears.
Right, so there's threat to your livelihood, threat of certainly your cool stuff being taken away. Um,
Yeah.
that's plenty. That
I
sounds
think
awful.
that's it, right?
Yeah.
Like I have a very nice life in this society, one of the nicer ones. And uh, I have that because I'm doing this morally compromising job. And
Mhm.
it's this tension of like,
Yeah, how long can you stomach doing the thing or be caught doing the things you need to do to make it okay that you're doing this other
Right.
thing? Yeah.
right.
Great.
I think it's a little uncomfortable to be close to like the capitalistic nature of it, but I do like that ploy on how simple it is to take things away.
Yeah, I think we all kind of live to a certain extent with that precarity.
Mhm.
I think it's very
With
real and familiar.
with the idea of the media saturation, like I imagine society is like your value to society would be how memorable you are with all of this media. So what if you are found out conspiring against these ideals, what if the big bad is that you are erased from other people's memories? Like
Yeah,
no one
I like
can
that a
recall
lot.
you.
Yeah, like
I
they
don't
can't
care.
search you up anymore. They can't contact you. You just get like ostracized from.
Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm having a Black Mirror moment where you can actually block people in real life
Yeah.
and they just come static.
Oof.
Muted static.
Yeah, there's like an unseeing of people who are not part of the network. Great. So then there's
Yeah.
probably this large group of people kind of living on the outside of that.
And that reminds me of another Black Mirror episode where they're like people are rate each other with Instagram ratings like 1 to 5, and then
Oh
like
gosh,
if
yeah.
your rating gets lower, your place in society gets lower as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
definitely the kind of world I think that we live in here around like everyone is deeply monitored and deeply integrated into this messed up kind of social media game.
Yeah.
Great. And so you risk getting pushed outside of that, which is even worse than being in it. Awesome. And so now we come to the kind of big high level stakes questions. What comes at the dream's end? So the questions here are, what will be left of the waking world should the conspiracy devour the dream? And if our dreams were free of the darkness, what might we wake up to find? So these are like the big picture ideas of like what does the antagonism ultimately want to do and how is that going to change the world? And then also like if y'all were to somehow dispel all of that stuff, break up the conspiracy, not have this monolithic dream that is trying to shatter the bounds between the waking and dreaming worlds, like what's the world going to be like on either side of that outcome?
I feel like for the first one I have very strong like Matrix vibes in terms of if this happens, then we lose touch with our real reality entirely.
Mm-hmm.
and everything is manufactured, and potentially the conspiracy is in charge of what that manufactured experience looks like.
Yeah, and there's like a danger in both directions of like, sure, yeah, the dream breaks into the mundane world and messes things up, but also like all of the shit from the mundane world really cements itself in the dream. Then we're looking at like, surveillance and control and all of these things bleeding into that world as well. And so then there's no escape from those things.
Yeah.
Does that jive for everyone? It's pretty bleak, but
So what was it again? Sorry, I was reading and thinking. I did not listen.
this idea that like if the dreaming world and waking world are no longer separate, that kind of all of the problems of both kind of end up manifesting. That like we lose touch with the actual world and actual people, but then also can't, like, we don't get any of the upsides of the dream as we understand it now, where like it's a place you can experience intimacy, or it's a place where you can escape
So like
things.
merging the two now brings out the worst in both.
Yeah, at least if it happens the way that the conspiracy is pushing it.
Oh, sick.
I like it.
And so then, as a counterpoint, if our dreams were free of the darkness, what might we wake up to find? So this is about like, if our dreams are no longer plagued by this one big all-consuming thing, then how is that going to change the mundane world that we live in?
So, I'm not totally sure I understand, so I'm just going to throw ideas out there. Does this mean that our dreams, in a way, can no longer be an escape?
I mean, maybe it's like a world where you don't need to escape from it into your dreams. Because like the stuff that the conspiracy is pushing presumably is like a reaction to this very oppressive society, but one that is not going to like fix its problems. Is there some alternative that is more hopeful? I guess is what this question is really trying to get at.
I don't think so. I don't know.
So if I could, I have a thought, which is that like we have this world in which we're given all of this media saturation is probably meant to be kind of escapist, that we are kind of trapped in our own little internal worlds and looking for ways out of it, because the society we have authored here is so shitty, right? Like everyone is forced to conform and is constantly surveilled and policed in their behavior, and that like there is a version of this world where people just want to escape into the dream and they do so to their detriment, and there's a version where they are permitted to like actually do, actually have emotional intimacy in the real world, actually experience the world in a positive way when they are awake, rather than only being able to find that through escape. So it's like a change of perspective where society actually seeks to address its own problems rather than hide from them. Whereas the conspiracy is kind of offering this like, oh, well, we just have escapism that's so good that you never need to do that, which is a total poison pill, right?
Yeah, for me, it kind of feels like the positive, which also sounds hard, is that all of the escapism is removed. The dreams, maybe the media, this question, but that we actually have to grapple with the reality of our lives, and that maybe that like awakens some sort of revolution.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe, I don't know if it's too cheesy of a suggestion, but that it could be a revolutionary thing, I think is very powerful still.
I think that fits with our aesthetic. Like, I think the world at large now is treating humanity in a way that is like the ideal is striving to be more and more robotic, like, to not show your emotions. So, like, the bad way would, you're right, like, would be to be like, oh, we yeet our bodies and stay permanently into the dream world, or what if the dream world is here and we have organic emotions? So take away the media. Oh man, scramble the data.
Like, don't let people shy away from the reality of their lives and force them to actually like do stuff. about it.
Right.
Yeah,
If that
less
seems
and
like a
less
reasonable
programming towards like artificial intelligence and going back to being real people.
Oh gosh, that reminds me of like the final scenes of Wall-E almost. You know what I'm talking about?
where I cried because I was sad about robots. Is that what
Yeah,
we're
all
talking
I
about
remember
here?
is crying.
Sorry, not the final scenes of robots, but like more like when they eventually get out of their chairs. It's like, we have
Yeah.
a swimming pool. Oh, you're
Yeah,
a
like
person?
all the things that people might discover if they actually were curious about the world instead of blanketing themselves. I think that's a powerful notion.
Yeah, I like it.
Great. Here's the most difficult part then, and the last part, which is we choose a name for the series that reflects these answers. We could skip this, I guess, if you want, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, we should
like
do it.
a title.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for acknowledging that names are the hardest part.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm not
I
going to
get
like
into
soft
games
sell
and they're
it
like,
here.
okay, what's the name? And I'm like,
I can tell you.
so much to me.
Yeah, I have all my stats figured out. I've got everything planned, and then it's like, what's your character's name? No, impossible. Don't know.
You're like, give me 20 minutes, no, an hour? Get back to me tomorrow. Yeah, that's...
And so the little bit of help that I try to offer is, so we've just answered these two really big stakes questions. And so the idea is to choose a name for the series that reflects those answers. So the name is about what the kind of overarching stuff of the show that we imagine is about. So the big themes there were like escapism, surveillance, and like self-denial, I guess, is kind of a lot of what I'm seeing emerge as themes about like how these people live. That they both like deny themselves externally, like they don't show their emotions, but also that they have to kind of lie to themselves about what they're feeling in order to get by, to deal with these like morally compromising jobs and all these kinds of...
I feel like sleepwalk can be worked in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. That's a strong visual.
Yeah, because like we could certainly have the metaphor of like the waking world is kind of asleep in a way, or like everyone's moving around in a daze. They're not even truly awake either.
Yeah, definitely a whole walking in stupor situation.
Yeah, with all the like smog and haze too, it lends that kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I keep thinking Eyes Wide Shut, but I'm like, oh wait, no, that's a next one.
Very different. Very different. We could go with Sleepwalkers. It's follows very naturally, and Jory said it already, which are two very good qualities that it has.
Point. I think something along the sleepwalking, I don't know. I there's a brainstorming process. I feel like that's a good placeholder, and then I'm sure I'm gonna fall asleep or take a shower,
and then it'll occur. Yeah, we can like come back to our next session with a name. One thing I will mention is I watched a documentary recently called Sleep Furiously, and I was like, that name is the best.
What was this documentary about?
It's about a small Welsh town, and it just kind of like shows life there and the way that people live and the stuff that's going on, but it's very like flat. It doesn't really have an agenda. It's just trying to like show you this place as it is. Very, very powerful. It was just
like a really catchy name, just like...
Yeah. I think there's kind of this idea of like the ways in which that way of life might cease to be, like as it like slowly fades, and that it, you know, this idea of sleeping furiously, that it is fading away but not but it's like tenaciously holding on at the same time. There's a contradiction there. It's a cool name, certainly, and a very good documentary.
I have a proposal.
Okay.
Sleepwalk in the park.
Hey, that is not bad at all. I like it.
Yep.
So we've got the natural elements of the dreams potentially.
Sleepwalk in the park. Easy peasy.
All right.
Or another one, sleepwalk this way.
Which way?
The conformity way. This way. There's only one way.
Oh. Ooh, that's fun too.
Well, I definitely like the idea of I've got that written down, and we can come back to it next week or 2 weeks from now. And if someone has had a revelation, we can revisit it. But I think this is great as a session 0.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, because I don't want to go super late tonight. So next time we play, we'll finish up just getting characters blocked in, and then we'll start playing the game proper. And I will make notes and imagine things and come prepped as well.
Yay.
Awesome.
Woo! I'm excited.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Oh no, I gotta think of a character name.
So there is a name list in the sheets if
Yeah.
you're into that kind of thing. For this playset, all the names are 1 syllable, and there's a good
I like
range.
them.
So there's kind of like there's a set that I'll be pulling from and that y'all can make use of as well. If you're the kind of person who likes picking from lists, which I know I am. Obviously, I made this game and it's all list picking. But great. So we will do this again in 2 weeks at the same time. And I guess this is where the outro starts. So I will do production value and change to this other overlay. And then I will talk about myself, and then everyone else can talk about themselves. So I'm Andrew. I wrote this game. You can follow me on Twitter at Commuting Crow, and you can keep an eye on this game. It is going to be published through Evil Hat at some point. I'm just kind of in the final stages of it. And so, yeah, that's me. Jory, you want to go next?
I'm Jory. I'm really excited to play this game, and I don't have anything to promote because I'm just playing a game.
Great.
You're playing it brilliantly.
Thank you.
Jess, do you have any plugs?
Twitter's a hellscape, but it's a great hellscape that I like interacting with people. And if you follow me there, I'm currently working on gathering diverse voices and how we can interact with human relations and human resources on tabletop industry.
Cool. Yeah, that's an important project, certainly. And Morgan?
Yeah, I am super jazzed about this game. I'm so excited to see where it goes. But yeah, I'm Morgan. You can find me on the interwebs at Serena Bezos. I'm still there. I'll promote all my stuff, so I'm not going to promote it here. I don't want to take up time. But yeah, I am enjoying this game design so far. So yeah, I'm excited.
Great. So yeah, you can catch us in 2 weeks. And bye for now.